Why don't you kick things off just by sharing with us a little about your background and how you all got started?
Yeah, so I'm a military kid. We ended up in Oklahoma, my dad's final duty station in the Navy. He ended up building a house, and I was about the age of 12 at that time. I was in all the facets of construction as a homeschooled Navy brat, and just got hooked on building things. It was always a very natural thing for me, and I love the community, just those kinds of rough people that get things done no matter what. And then eventually moved out to Idaho for college, got involved. At the time, I wanted to be a Marine and found a volunteer fire department in my local town, became a fireman, and discovered that's exactly what I wanted to do rather than ship out as a Marine. And my hats off to those guys, but I found it here at home. And throughout my time as a firefighter, I just have continued as a tradesman. So my trades experience is run along parallel, just like most firemen. Most firemen are blue collar guys who have always been in a trade as well. And those are a very complementary pursuit. I was told early on, if you want to be a good fireman, the best thing you can understand is fire behavior and building construction. And I think, honestly, as a firefighter, I might know more about building construction than your average builder. Your average builder becomes very specialized and is only exposed to what they are normally exposed to. As firefighters, we have to be exposed to everything. So being in all the eras of construction and all the types of construction is a really important thing for me as a builder, and as a remodeler, as well as our new construction, harnessing the things that I understand for the better of the customer.
It's nice. Yeah, I can definitely see how that goes in hand. It doesn't come to mind right away, knowing that you're going to be running into a building that's on fire and you should probably know the ins and outs of a building. So I can see how that's very complimentary. And that puts you at a good vantage point too, I think. So you started Forge Construction in 2021 and you're already into year four. So you're growing into multiple service types and markets. Like what's helped you gain traction early on?
So I started out just deciding to focus on trim carpentry. It was a very low bar of entry. I already had all the tools. I'd been doing fly by night work for friends, family, and such. And when I decided to go official, I was like, well, this is the thing that I have the most contacts to do, and I can do it alone very easily. So that's what I started out with. Very soon, I realized I had enough volume. I needed to hire a guy. Hired my first employee, and I'm not doing anything new here. I'm just stealing from what I've learned as a fireman. The span of control of a manager is very well understood. I'm very good at delegating. It's very beat into me to continue calling for more resources and applying the right resources to the job. And delegating and prioritizing. So every Fortune 500 company does it. Every military unit does it. It's just a natural feature of the way we're built and how we can manage things effectively. So that's been the biggest piece of our growth is just those skills and gifts that have been given to me.
Yeah, and I want to get into delegation a little bit more here soon, because I think that's an excellent topic. I think and there's a lot of value around that, especially because you're good at it and it's been ingrained in you. And I think that you probably have a lot of value to share around that. So you guys, you cover residential, commercial, and remodels. So how has diversifying like that helped with stability and growth in your company?
Yeah. So again, you got to find the right resource for the right problem. So me hiring certain skill sets, I've had a desire when I bring on a new leadership level person, I'm looking for a specific skill set to fill a specific gap. And we started out improving our remodel abilities as we I started out, I grew to the size where I was running new constructions and doing carpentry in house and siding in house. And then once we decided to hire more project management, the first project manager I hired had a good remodel background and was able to bring those curveballs, that data bank of curveballs with him, and just save us a lot of pain and suffering, stuff that I would have failed at. He was able to bolster us as we moved into that space effectively.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so you've got some in-house guys, but you work with subs. How has that kind of impacted timelines, quality control? Because that's kind of a hybrid model, and a lot of guys do that. So, but just something, yes,
Yeah,
if you could
so
speak to that.
we we grow so that our funnel is big enough with our brand that we have too much work than we know what to do with, right? So that's top of funnel. The next thing I want to focus on is being able to process leads more quickly than I can get to the work. So we call people back within the same business day. Within one business day, I initiate contact with every single customer. I might only talk to a customer for 3 minutes and never talk to them again. And it's all delegated from there. But I initially have that immediate as possible contact so that I let them know that they're important to us and that Marshall or Nate will be calling them, and I get that expectation built. The next thing I do is just recognize that various pieces of the team downstream from that are waiting for work. And so project managers need to get their projects approved and ready and put my internal team to work. And that gets filled up pretty quickly. We have more volume than our internal team can handle. And so we obviously then also have to rely upon subcontractors. And it's really important that you do it that way. What I've found is that if you do everything all by yourself, the subcontractor world kind of holds you at arm's length because you have nothing to offer them. And I want them to recognize that I also have something to offer them. So being willing to continue being faithful to subs and prioritizing my internal team first, but also harnessing them as I'm able has been really just a winning model for us.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's a good segue because when we had talked earlier, you had said, and I'm kind of going off script a little bit, but you had talked about letting go of the vine, and you've already covered delegation pretty well, finding specific people for a specific spot, specific purpose. I like your idea that the funnel down, keeping your guys busy so that you're really overflowed, and then that work goes out to the subs. But you said something that was really interesting that I'd like for you to touch on and kind of walk us through is you said, I'm willing to sacrifice my reputation for someone else's mistakes so they can grow. You said the customer is not always right and that you are looking after the well-being and can, go ahead and tell me what it was
I
you said
can,
because you said it really well.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So the thing for everyone to recognize is that a team is built concentrically. So, for example, my wife and I work together. We're the most important cohesive unit within the team. If that's awry, then the business will suffer, right? So my wife and I have to maintain our team relationship first and foremost. And then the next thing within that is in our management team. I have to keep that circle running well. And then downstream from that, every concentric circle outwards to the edges of forged construction need to be cared for. Once all that is cared for, you can then go out and bless the customer. So when I say the customer is not always right, every now and then I'll have a customer mistreat my employee. Well, what am I going to do as a leader? Am I going to uh, value my employee less than that customer? Or am I going to stand by my teammate who's going to be with me for maybe 10, 20, 30 years? I'm going to be faithful to him and uphold his reputation and say, no, this is what we understand. This is what your claim is. This is what's in documentation, right? I'm going to contend with that customer for the sake of my employee because I want my internal customer service to be just as great as my external customer service, but it is in that priority. You take care of the inside circles first, and then the customer receives the blessing of that well oiled machine that it gets things done.
Yeah, you said it very well. And that's a great paradigm to have. It makes sense because You take care of your team, your guys, you side with them. Like you said, you're loyal and faithful to them. And I think a lot of people, it's just something you hear. Oh, the customer's always right. The client's always right. Sorry, but they're not. They're not always right. I
And
really like that.
this also gets into delegation too, right? Like, hey, when we talk about the ability to delegate something to someone, you're you're giving them free trust. You're saying, go out and take a try at it, and I'm not going to micromanage you. And they might fail, and you might actually frustrate a customer. The customer is going to be upset because something went awry. Well, not only am I going to have to bleed some money on my employee's mistake, but I'm also going to have to deal with a upset customer. And so my willingness to suffer in that way is also another way in which I build trust within my team. Because when they know I'm willing to suffer for them, then they're willing to stick their neck out for me, and really just it creates a very cohesive unit. I'm not going to come down on them in such a way that is unreasonable. Now, if it continues to happen, we got to deal with that. Maybe you're not the right guy for the job. Those sorts of conversations can happen, but ultimately, taking care internally is a that bleeds into how you delegate and how you care for your internal customers.
Absolutely. So, how have you handled, kind of letting people go out on their own, delegating certain things to them, and kind of being hands off? And I know you had mentioned, you're working on SOPs. Did you mention that your team is writing their own SOPs?
It's the sort of thing where I need to be driving us forward with our systems and our structure. We've arrived at the size of 23 people. So we're at the point where really, if we get any bigger, there's chaos that is going to cripple us. And so recognizing that we need to understand that we're always going to do our siding the same way. A new guy comes on and he should be able to read what's expected of him. Those expectations are where we're at our size. And it's really easy to ask upper levels of forge construction, guys that have been here since our inception, they're still here. And to ask them to say, hey, write it down. Like, tell everyone in writing how you would want all of your siding crew to operate, and then letting them take ownership of that produces a far superior product than what I would create on my own. I'm still going to tweak it. I'm going to still look at it from a business standpoint, or from the leadership standpoint of what was my original vision in this company, and insert my own flair. But it really is important on any business, once you begin to scale, to give leadership away to the teammates at every level and let them own it.
So, how has that trust-based leadership impacted your team's performance and like overall culture?
Yeah, culture is everything. So we have an incredibly good retention rate. People do come into our team and try it out and decide, I just this isn't for me. We're intense. I call my guys junkyard dogs, because they're out in the snow, they're out in the rain, they're in the mud. This is Idaho, and they really get it done. And I've always got something to praise. So I try to focus on that. I'm always praising, but I'm also always looking for every single thing that can get humped. And I really don't let anything go. I don't turn a blind eye to much. I might not say it to the guy that made the mistake. I might just say it to a project manager. Hey, this is what I saw. That constant, steady feedback needs to be joyful, but it needs to be constant, because as soon as you start normalizing mistakes, then you create a normalization of deviance, and that's how guys get off track.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. This is great stuff. Is there something that you experienced maybe year two, year three, maybe when you were at, 8, 9, 10 guys going up to 23, that really impacted your growth, scalability?
Yeah, it really was delegating the men to a project manager. So the way we have it designed is I have a project management division, and I have a trades division. Historically, what I had done was project management existed separately from trades, and the trades were always competing for the work. And I was managing all of the tradesmen, at least at the foreman level. And then I had my project managers. Once you reach 7 people that you're managing, it's untenable. And so I had 4 trades, and I had 2 project managers. And then when I hit 8 things, which was a third project manager, I really started to become overwhelmed because there was too much going on both sides. So what I had to do was I had to take the entire trades division and insert it under a senior project manager who basically dispensed resources amongst the project managers as the priorities see fit, right? We had the volume that we had too much work for all of our people. That's great. Our people respond to the most imperative issues in our timelines and in our schedules. And then subcontractors are taking up the rest of that. And so giving that away fully was hard for me because that was really had been the thing that I had always taken care of, and I really felt like I needed to be a part of the growth of some of these foremen that were with me. But creating this giant separation between me and them had to happen if we're going to continue to scale this because it just was not tenable. So that was a big moment for us.
Well, and congratulations for taking that step and separating and delegating, putting guys where they need to be because that is hard. You want to be in control. A lot of guys are very afraid that if they let someone do something or they step away or they put someone else in a certain place, it's not going to happen how they want it to. And you start micromanaging back to culture. So that's really good advice for anybody looking to get out of that spot where, man, I got all these people, I got all these guys and all this stuff going on. Well, maybe you need to look at putting somebody in the right place to help and to, you know, delegate that position instead of putting that all on your shoulders. You had talked about having so much work for your guys, and when we spoke earlier, you said most of your stuff was kind of coming from referrals. Do you guys do any other sort of outreach or marketing that keeps your pipeline filled with work so that you can extend that to the subcontractors?
Yeah, so this goes back to Darren Doan and him impressing upon me that I don't want to market. I want to have a brand. And our brand is we are the elite construction company in the Moscow, Idaho area. And we want to be known as the folks that just get it done the best and the fastest and the most tenaciously. And the way I do that is through a lot of social media and a lot of storytelling, right? I want to tell the story of who these guys are so that when people come to hire me, they kind of already know some faces and names. And they might even know what we're about. People are far more inclined to buy from people. So I mostly focus on selling my people. People in general know everybody's names, or at least some of their names. And a lot of the guys that show up on projects are recognizable through their presence on our social media. I think that's critical because, people are hiring you to come into their house, especially on these remodels, or they're asking you to build their dream. And so instilling that human level of interaction through the screen, admittedly, is all that we're doing. But creating that interaction at the outset generates a lot of trust.
That's really good. That's really good. And jumping from maybe no marketing, word of mouth referrals to brand building is usually a skip step there, but it is the long-term game. It's the bigger play. And to anybody listening to this, marketing is very valuable, but Brad is right. Having a brand recognized when your truck drives by, what's the first thing that that person's going to think in their mind when they see that logo? That's your brand. That's what you portray to the marketplace. And I think that's really good what you're doing because you're not the only person that can do their project. You're not the only person that could do the remodel or build their house. Somebody else could do that as well. So there's something else there that you're showing up differently to the marketplace, to the clients, and that's what they want. I've sold jobs that were more expensive compared to other bids just because they liked us more. We showed up differently. We communicated better. And so it's not all about the results or, getting the job done. There's a lot more to it. And I think that that's awesome that it's not just you as the face of the company too. You're incorporating the guys that are out there in the field that people run into and people see. And so, yeah, you're already building that trust, the visual recognition, and that's excellent. And that's going to take you really, really far long term. And you have such a great foundation in doing that. That brand's just going to expand and explode. So that's super cool. And like you said earlier, we kind of talked on this off camera. Start dirty. Just film yourself talking about your company, of showing a project that you're doing. Get case studies. This is pro tip. Get case studies from your best clients. Somebody's really pleased with your work, pull out your phone. Hey, do you mind if I just quickly kind of film your experience with us? Slap that on your website, put on your social media. Other people love that. And they will see another normal human being saying how great you are and their experience. Boom. That will help you so much, so much. Um, Definitely do that if you can. Brad, we're kind of coming to a close here. I'd like to just open it up to you if you want to say anything or talk about something. You got the floor.
Yeah, I think what I would riff on is what you were talking there is why you want to get on social media. You want to get on social media and tell people who you are, not because you're prideful, because that's how it feels. Like, who am I to get online? Nobody wants to hear from me, right? But that's internally what you're saying. But ultimately, it's pride that would keep you from doing it, because what you're actually afraid of is, oh, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want people to see that little thing that I could see there at the edge of the whatever, all those little mistakes, right? When you put yourself out there, it's actually a lot of humility. And you will open yourself up to criticism. But if you're willing to push into that, you're actually praising your people. If you have a team, what you're actually forecasting for them is what they can offer as a service to your customers. And if we're going to be, you know, business owners, then we're going to be capitalists. And capitalism is the notion of, what can I do to serve you? If I don't have anything of service to offer, no one will pay me money. And what I'm trying to show people is, hey, I have something that I can do for you. And that is an act of service to my people. And it's an act of service to the customer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. Cool, man. Anything else you might want to check out?
No, this is great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to, talk to blue collar dudes about the importance of telling these stories. It's hard for us to do. It's not why we got into this. I did not want to become good at being on a camera. And I was certainly clumsy in my own way to begin with, but it's very important, and learning how to tell people what we do is an important piece of competing for the growth that we desire for our people and for our families. And ultimately, that's why we're all here to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, putting yourself out there is actually very humbling, and it's pushing you out of your comfort zone, and it's going to make you grow. It's going to cause you to grow and get better. And those fears that you have are going to go away, and you start not caring, you know, this is who I am. This is what I have, and it won't matter anymore. Yeah, I like that a lot. Cool. Well, this has been great. Let's do real quick. I got some just quick fire things to go over before we end here. So, you want to close this out? If you could go back to year one, what's one thing you might do different?
Don't start with the cheap tools. Just go straight for the quality. I was doing trim carpentry with a portable cut station. And man, if I'd have just invested in the cut hub a lot sooner, it would have gone. I would have saved so much money, and I would have been able to retain some customers that were regular projects that I just wasn't able to compete with until I had the quality equipment to make us efficient.
That's a great one. What's a system or process you wish you'd implemented sooner?
Standards for trades. When we install siding, what does it need to look like when we walk away? When we frame, what are we expecting our openings to be regarding our rough openings? You know, just stuff like that needs to be written down. It needs to be something that your team can refer to so that when the new guy shows up, you're not turning, bearded blue collar dudes into teachers, right? And we're just not, they're not the best teachers. But if you can give them a piece of paper and say, this is our expectations. It's on one page. And let's walk through it real quick and really set them up to go hard and fast and help your team effectively from day one. That would be a lot of unnecessary pain we didn't have to go through.
Yeah, yeah, that's gold right there. How about a biggest win or proudest moment so far?
Biggest win would be when we grew to the point where we actually had to split off my excavation into its own company. So we grew forged construction into the portion of having multiple trades. And like I said, you can manage an optimum of 5 things. I had to split off forged excavation and give basically most of forged construction to my management team. And then we created 2 companies out of one. That was a pretty cool day. I really, you know, having having your own excavation company is a boy's dream
Yeah,
that I never knew I had.
yeah. Oh, I bet that's awesome. That's really cool, man. Where can people find you with you?
Yeah, we're all over. I'm personally on LinkedIn. I've got YouTube as where we try to focus people. We're also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
We'll put all those links down in the description of the video so you guys can go check that out and reach out to Brad and his team. Brad, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
I appreciate you having me. This is great.
Okay, awesome. We'll talk soon. Thanks. I want to stay on topic, and I think the delegation thing has been really